Okay, so we're going to apply our same techniques as what was with this egg, the same lights and shadows, onto a more complex object. Now, yesterday, you should have been practicing incorporating and using different textures. So what I want you to do is I want you to choose a piece of fruit. It could be any type of fruit, and you can 100% use your computer to look one up. But I'm going to go ahead and just draw a cherry. So I'm going to go ahead and just draw this cherry from my memory. And I'm going to draw the general idea of the cherry, which is a sort of this like almost squashed oval shape. Add a stem. And just break a little stem off right there. And I'm going to go ahead and add a little leaf off to the side. Once you draw your piece of fruit, we're going to go ahead and add our shading to this object. So the first thing you need to do is you need to decide where your light's going to be. I'm going to have my light coming from this direction. You want to incorporate the shadows on every last one of the objects that you did. So the first thing I'm going to do, since the light is coming from this direction, I'm going to add it to the objects that are a little more simple. So for example, the stem is just a little, treat it like a rectangle. So one side is going to be really dark and one side is going to be really light. So I'm just darkening one side, and on the same thing on the leaf, darken one side of the leaf, leave the other side light. By doing that, it allows me to just fill in the space and make those areas darker. That creates the general idea. Now what you want to do is just along that line, you want to blend it out with your pencil. Just blend it out just a little bit. And then in this case, I'm going to go ahead and add just a little bit of hatching along the stem and a little bit on the leaf, going in different directions to make a little bit of texture. I'm going to erase one little line right there, and that allows me to have a more realistic looking stem. Once you have your stem involved, again, I'm adding just a little bit of cross hatching onto the stem just to create a nice, interesting texture for it, and a bright line going up the edge of the stem. Once you have the stem or whatever designs that you want on the easier shapes, you want to get to the more complex shapes. So at this point, you want to draw that terminator line. That terminator line in this case is going to get a little bit more complex because of the fact that it has a complex shape. It's not just a simple circle. You have the inside of the cherry as well to consider. You also need to consider the shadow that might be cast by the stem. So I'm going to bring this up and back down because we want to remember that there's a curve at the top of the cherry. Up and back down. And this is where that terminator line is going to be. You're also going to want a secondary line right around here for your midtones. Keep that curve following the top of your fruit. And you could draw the cherry if you want, that's up to you, but I want you to try and draw something a little more complex. The next thing, you're going to draw another smaller circle off to the side of your shape to create a space for the reflected lights, and then you're going to draw in the shadow. Now, if it's a rounded shape, your shadow is going to be more oval. The closer your light is, the smaller the shadow is going to be on this side. Now, you want to consider it to be an oval. It's not going to be a big circle. You're not drawing a circle. You're drawing a flat oval, like a disc. A flat oval, not a circle, an oval. So you're going to first start by filling in that space. You can use whichever technique you want for this portion. I highly recommend starting with a hatching technique just to get the general idea of that shadow, but that's up to you. The next part, I'm going to go in to this core shadow, and you don't have to label like I'm about to, but I want you to pay attention to how I label it. So the first thing I'm going to remember is that this is the highlight. Then you have the midtone, core, reflected. Okay, you're going to fill in that core shadow as dark as you can using whichever technique you want to use. I'm using a hatching technique right now, just to get that general idea in there very quickly. Next, you're going to go very lightly and fill in your midtone. Again, I'm starting with hatching in my case because I want to get those tones and textures in very quickly. Then the reflected light is going to have the same as the midtone, the same color as the midtone. Now, at this point, you can go in and blend out those lines in the middle of the different sections. You can blend those out to start getting the start darkening the core and blending it up into the midtone and the midtone up into the highlight. Maintain that shape. You want this space to remain as bright as possible. Keep it to the curve and make sure to outline this side. The shadow side should always be outlined extra dark just to create that reflected light. Now don't forget to add a shadow for your whatever extra bits that you have on there. So in this case I have the leaf. It doesn't even have to match it exactly, it just has to be a general idea. And then you can go in and blend it out or erase areas to make them just a little bit brighter than they were before. Once you have drawn your fruit, you are going to be turning in your paper for today.